this video, I'm going to show you how to create a lamp base for our LED lamps that we're creating as part of this next project. So you can see an example of that up on the screen at the moment. So you can see here I've got like my main body here, and then I've got the lid. And you'll notice that the lid has got a slot in it to slot in our acrylic pieces for our lamps. So I'm going to basically show you how to create what I've done here. Now, importantly, for this project, there are many different ways that you can create this lamp base, and I'm going to show you one way, but if you choose to do it another way, that's fine, as long as it works and has the right measurements that you want. Now, before we start any work on Fusion, it's really important that you already have your measurements in place, so you know how wide you want your base, you know how long you want it to be, how deep you want it to be, importantly, how long you want that slot to be, because all of these things are difficult to change later on. You'll also notice I've got a hole there for the LED light strip to fit into. So all of these things are things you need to take into consideration. So it might be worth doing a drawing first before you start anything on Fusion 360 to avoid you doing it twice. So I'm just going to click on New Design, and now I'm going to create the base of my main body. So I'm going to go to Create Sketch like we usually do in Fusion, and I need to decide which plane I want to sketch on, and I want to sketch on that plane. So basically, if we're thinking about 3D printing, I'm looking at the print bed from the top down. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create the main body, and I've already got some measurements in mind. So I want to make my main body 150 millimeters, which is 15 centimeters, by 40 millimeters, so by 4 centimeters. So that's my main body there. Now, I don't really like the square corners like that. If you do, that's fine, and you can leave it like that. But for me, I kind of like it to be a little bit rounded off. So I'm going to choose this fillet option up the top here. So I'm going to click on that, and then if I click on the corner, you can see it rounds that corner off for me. Now, I can change that measurement if I want, so I can make it 20 if I want, but I kind of like the semi-rounded look, so I'm just going to go with 10 mil, and any other corners that I click on will also fill it by 10 mil. Okay, so then you can see I've got kind of that shape of the original design that I showed you earlier, so I've got kind of that sort of shape. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to finish the sketch. Okay, so that's kind of the bottom of my main body. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude. Now this is how tall or how deep you want your lamp base to be. So you can decide for yourself how deep you want it to be. I'm going to go with a measurement of, let's go with 30 mil. Nah, look, I think I might go for 40 mil. Yeah, I kind of like that depth. So you can, like I said, you can choose. Just make sure that you've got an idea of where everything's going to go first, so that you know you've got enough room for everything. So I'm going to go with OK now. So now you can see I've kind of got my main body, but at the moment it's a solid object. So obviously I can't fit anything into it yet, and I am going to need a lid, which is going to allow me to put the LED light strip in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just highlight that whole body, and rather than just being a solid object, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it into a shell. Now, when I turn it into a shell, I need to decide how thick I want that shell to be. So how thick do you want the plastic to be on your design? I'm going to go with a measurement of 3 mil. And now it still looks the same. So it looks like nothing has changed here, but actually what it's done is it's removed everything on the inside. So what I'm going to do to expose the inside is I'm going to click on that top face there, and I'm going to extrude that. Now, if I bring it up, it's just going to make it taller. I actually want to push it down. So I'm going to use a negative measurement. I'm going to use -3 because that's how thick my shell is. And if I tap enter, then you can see I've got that main body. Okay, so I can easily then put my light strip in here, as long as I have a hole at one end in order to put that in, so that the wire has somewhere to hang out, so that of course we can then plug it into something, plug it into the wall. So there's a couple of different ways I can go about it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to create that hole right now. So I'm just going to click on this face here, and I'm going to create a new sketch, which I'm then going to extrude or push in. So what I know is that the light strip connectors need probably a minimum of about 15 mil, and could be a little bit wider if you want. So I'll leave that up to you. Minimum of 15, but if you want to make it easier, make it a little bit bigger than that. And then probably like 10 mil would probably be enough there to fit the wires into. Now, if I finish that sketch, you can see I've got that rectangle there. Now, to make that a hole, I need to click on it and I need to extrude it. And rather than pulling it out, I'm going to push it in. And again, I'm going to go with -3 because the thickness of the shell that I chose earlier was 3 mil. So as long as I go 3 mil in, that should create a hole where I can put my LED light strip. That's not too bad. It's probably better if you get that a little bit closer to the base, but I'll just leave that up to you to kind of fiddle around with yourself. So now what I've kind of got that main body sort of pretty well sorted, but I don't have a lid yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now create a lid. Now, this is where it's important to remember the measurements that you've used so far. So I'm going to click on Create Sketch. I'm going to go face down again. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a lid, or I'm going to create a rectangle that was the same size as the rectangle I created earlier. So it was 150 millimeters by 40 millimeters. Okay, so this lid's going to fit neatly on top. And then if you wish, once you finish the project and you've got everything in its place, you might wish to then glue it on. But I'm going to make it so it can slot on and won't necessarily need to be glued. But like I said, you can if you wish. So I'm going to press enter. And now I've got the same kind of overall dimensions as I did with my main body. But what I still need to do is I still need to fillet those corners. So I'm just going to use that same measurement of 10 to make a lid that has the same footprint as my main body. So I'm going to now finish the sketch. Okay, so you can see that's the same size as my main body. And now I'm going to extrude it. Now I'm going to extrude that a little bit thicker than the main body. So I'm going to actually extrude that 5 millimeters. The reason I'm doing that is because when I make the slot for the acrylic, if the lid is really thin, then it doesn't hold onto the acrylic very well. So I'm just going to make that a little bit thicker to make that part a little bit stronger. So I'm going to go with 5 mil. Now I don't yet have a slot to put my acrylic piece into yet. So that's the next thing I'm going to create. So I'm going to click on I'm going to create a new sketch and I'm going to click on the face of the lid. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a rectangle on the lid. Now this rectangle, you need to know the measurements of your piece of acrylic that you're going to slot into it to allow you to give the right measurements for this slot that we're putting in. So let's just pretend that I've measured mine and I know that it's going to be 110 millimeters long. And I also know that the thickness of the acrylic that we use is 3 millimeters. Okay, so I'm going to choose a slot that's 3 millimeters wide. Okay, and I'm going to press OK. Okay, and then I'm going to finish the sketch. Now, at the moment, that's not a slot yet. It's just a rectangle on the face. So what I need to do is I need to extrude it. So I'm going to click on that face in there. You can see that it's highlighted in blue now. And then I'm going to select extrude. And similar to before, instead of pulling it out, I'm going to push it in. And we know that we made it 5 millimeters thick. So I'm going to go with -5, which will mean that I've got now a hole in the top. And I can see there. So I've got that hole. That's going to be where I'm going to slot the acrylic. Okay. Now, at the moment, this would work fine. But what I would need to do when I print this out is I would need to glue the lid on top there. And I'd need to get it just right because there's nothing that's going to sort of guide it into its position. So what I'm going to do now is if we have a look back at my original design, you can see I've created these like kind of rectangular prisms on the base of the lid so that when it goes on top of the main body, it kind of holds it into place. Now, you might wish to glue it after that, but even if you are planning on gluing it, these little, I suppose we could call them like sort of guide rails, will make sure that that lid fits neatly on top of your main body. And if you didn't want to glue it, you don't really need to. it would just hold itself in place. Now, you could probably do a better job than what I have, and you can probably get a nice little curved part in the corners as well, but I've just gone for something really easy, and I'm pretty sure that this is going to work. So I'm going to go back to this design now, and what I know is I know that the thickness of these walls is 3 millimeters because that was the thickness of the shell that we created. So basically I need sort of those guide rails to be 3 millimeters from the edge, okay? That's a little bit tricky to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sketch, and I'm going to click on the face of the lid, okay, which is actually going to end up being the base of the lid. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to use a line, and I'm going to go to the corner here, and I'm going to create a line that's 3 millimeters long. Okay, now that is just a guide for me so that I know when I create this rectangle, I know that it's going to be 3 millimeters from the edge. Now, I just need to make that thick enough that it's going to not snap, I suppose. So sort of any thickness will probably do there, but let's go for 5 millimeters. And I'm going to press enter there. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to finish that sketch. Now that line is basically irrelevant. You can delete it if you want, but you don't really need to, because once you extrude, and that's really annoying, I clicked on home and it spun me around. Once I extrude this, that line will just become irrelevant anyway. So I'm going to extrude that, and I'm going to use 5 millimeters again, just to make sure that it is deep enough that it'll hold it in place. Well, maybe I'll go 7 just to make sure. Okay, so you can see there, that's just going to hold it in place when it slots in. Okay, now I need to do the same thing on all 3 other sides. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to go create sketch. I'm going to click on that part of the lid. I'm just going to move it down a little bit. I'm going to create another line right in that corner there. That's going to be 3 millimeters. Make sure it's straight. 3. So I've just typed in 3, press enter, and now I can create my rectangle from that point. And I'm going to make my rectangle 5 millimeters thick again. You might use a different measurement, that'll work, and that's fine. So I'm going to press enter. Okay, I'm going to finish the sketch again, and then I'm going to click on that. I'm going to extrude it, and I went for 7 millimeters last time. I'm going to go the same thing again. Okay, now I need to do the same thing on the other 2 sides. So let's create sketch again. So it's really important that you pay really close attention to the measurements that you're using, because if you are trying to just do it roughly, then when you go to 3D print it, it's not going to come out the way you want it to. So make sure you've got the measurements that you need, and make sure that you pay really close attention so that you don't have to do this job twice. So now I'm going to create another line from that corner, 3 millimeters, enter, get my rectangle back out. Okay, I'm going to go for 5 millimeters again as the thickness. And I'm going to make it go to that corner there, which I think will be 20. Oops. That's 3. Other one will be 20 to make it right on that line. Enter. Whoops. Sorry, I just realized I did 3 instead of 5 like the other 2. It wouldn't matter too much. We could have left it at that, but just in the interest of making it all neat and tidy. Okay, and then I'm going to finish that sketch. I'm going to extrude that 7 millimeters. We can't see that yet, so I'm just going to change the view slightly to make sure, yep, it has worked how I planned. Create sketch again, click on that face. Create another line that's 3 millimeters. So if you've used a different width for your shell, you'll just need to make that line whatever width of the shell is that you created. Make that 20, make that 5. Okay, so I've got that. I'll finish the sketch. Click on that, extrude it, 7 millimeters. Okay. All right, so now if I go back to my main view there, you can see I've got my main body, I've got my lid. I'm hoping that that will all come together nicely. Like I said, there's lots of different designs that you could use. You might like to have a longer base or a shorter base. You might like to have it deeper or shallower. Totally up to you. Now, the next thing I would advise you to do would be to write your name or put your initials on both of your pieces. Just because we're going to be printing off lots of different light bases, and if yours looks similar to someone else, then you might not know which one's yours. So I'm just going to go to create sketch again. I'm going to click on the base. So this is inside the base. So whatever I put in here isn't going to be viewable once I finish my project. So I've just gone there. I've gone to create sketch. I've gone to create and then text. Okay, and then I'm just going to create a text box. Doesn't really matter where that goes, but then you could just put your name in there somewhere. You might like to put your first and surname just in case someone else has got the same first name as you. Reposition that wherever you want it. Finish the sketch, and then I'm going to click on that text, and I'm going to extrude. Instead of pulling it out, I'm going to push it in, purely because that's where I'm going to stick my LED light strip. So if it was coming out, it might stop me from being able to stick it down neatly. So I've pushed in. Now I need to put my name on the inside of my lid as well. So I'm going to go create sketch, click on the inside of the lid there. Again, go to create text. I'm going to create a little text box in here somewhere. Let me just do that again. Okay. Now, on the lid, you might just like to put your initials. You can change that measurement. Okay, and again, I'm going to intrude or push it in, extrude, and -1. Okay, so now when that prints off, it'll have my name on the main body and my initials on the lid, which will be next to it anyway. And then that should be nice and easy to find later. Now, hopefully, this piece of information might be coming a little bit late, but hopefully you've got your lid relatively close to your main body. Just makes it easy when we're trying to 3D print a few of them at the same time. So once you've done that and you're happy with that, if you go to File, and then you need to export this file, give it a name. So we'll go JSON. Now, also importantly, in the name that you give it, tell me the color that you'd like. So for example, if you'd like a pink lamp base, call yours your first name and the color that you want. So then when I go to put it on the 3D printer, if I can, I'll make it the color that you choose. If we don't have that color, a lot of people just like black. So black's probably the most popular. But if you do want a different color, put it there and I'll see if I can put that color on. But yeah, you just need to create your name with the color in it. Then if you go to the location, so go to your DDC folder, save it in there. Okay, so you've saved, but you need to make sure you click export as well. So once you've exported it, then you can attach it to an email, send that email to me, and I can then 3D print it for you. If you have any questions, let me know. Like I said, there's other ways you can do this design. Don't feel like you have to do exactly how I've done it there. You might have a better design that you want to use, and that's totally fine. All right, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.